it's Jack Jennings here. I'd like to tell you about my course Essential Techniques for Indian Guitar that I've created. And yeah, just wanted to give people more of a peek so they can see what it's really like, because there is no other course that's like this. So you wouldn't even really be able to imagine what it's going to be like because there's nothing else to go by. So I thought it might be important for people just to see what it really is and all the different aspects that are in there and how it's all shaped up into a sort of formula that, you know, in the end kind of equals Indian classical music on the guitar, but it's all broken down into all these different easily understandable parts. This is the first page where I'm talking about the nature of the course and where a lot of the ideas came from, and particularly giving thanks to my teacher Roopa, Panesar, the amazing sitarist, who has really helped me to put this course together, and I really couldn't have done it without all of the input that she gave about the whole structure of Indian music and how it comes together. And also saying thank you to Shakir Khan, who is another one of my teachers just in the last year, who's been really helping me a lot. And my first sitar teacher, Donna Sanfei, who sadly passed away last year. I just wanted to mention him because I've really got him to thank, because he helped me to begin this journey playing Indian classical music. So in the first chapter, I'm talking about sargam, which is the theory system of Indian classical music, which is a vocal system. And I break down the concept and talk about why it's important. And I also connect it to the guitar neck and to Western theory, to note names and scale degrees. So that's a really nice chapter just to get you orientated. You really have to kind of go through that one to make sure you understand the future chapters. So let's just have a little look at some of this. On fret 5 of the D string. So that's the Shuddha Ma, the natural fourth. And now we have the Tivra Ma, which is the sharpened fourth. So this is the only syllable that you sharpen. It has this territory of the 5th fret and the 6th fret on the D string. So just talking about the vocal system and how you expand that to cover every note of the chromatic scale. And then in the next video I'm talking about string arrangement and the particular arrangement that I use with the Shakir strings, and also I talk about why they are used in that way and how they're effective. Into the tonic, which is D. They're also gauge 8, which means that they're lighter sounding. As there's 2 of them, you don't want them to become too overpowering. So these are going to have a lighter sound than the high E string. So yeah, just talking about all the different things to take into consideration to actually make them work effectively and to be integrated with the whole instrument in the right way. And there's diagrams and scale patterns, so you can practice scales in the right kind of way to begin to think more like an Indian musician on your guitar. And then we move into a different scale, we move into raagkafi, and then we start doing a whole recital based on raagkafi. The important thing about staying in one rag is that you explore all the different things that you can do with one rag through a whole recital, which could be an hour long, going through all these different techniques, all these different stages. And then you can take that kind of structure and you can apply it to all kinds of different rags. So once you've understood that, it's really powerful, because that's really the sort of premise that all of the creativity happens. It happens within this kind of structure. So then we talk about right hand techniques. These are really important. They're about how you use the Shakir strings. So that's just the basic pattern, and then we start to move on to more kind of complicated patterns. Again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then these patterns start to be more mobile. You start to move them around, and they become very powerful tools for improvisation. They give you a lot of structure and kind of rhythmic consistency that you can then go to improvise with and have a lot of freedom. And yeah, talking about all the different ornamentation techniques and how you start to treat your left hand in a different way, so it becomes more focused on nuances and getting that kind of vocal sound that Indian classical music has. So how to kind of reorientate yourself on the guitar in that way. And then we have examples where I'll play through a kind of like a realistic example of what you would actually hear on a recording or in a concert, but showing you specifically how everything we've learned so far is going into this stage of the recital. So the text on the screen is guiding you through what's being played. So this is going to really help you to listen more, with more idea of what's actually going on, because I'll be reminding you of what different notes are being used, what the range of the scale is that I'm using with the sargam. So that will really help to train your ear, because you'll be listening out for the note that I'm telling you that I'm using. So here's the ma. Ma, okay. Okay, and all the different nuances that are in there, they're all very much explained in the previous chapter of how they're really achieved. And then there's a lot of information here about the structure of the alap, because it can be a very specific structure in order to give you the right kind of idea of how to flow through something which sounds very organic and free, but you actually have a good sense of where you're going and how you're going to make it all work together. So yeah, then we start to look at bringing in the tabla and playing with the rhythm cycles of Indian classical music. That's something that you really someone needs to break it down for you just to understand. So on the hi-hat, back to the first beat. So that's how you count, how you know what the tabla syllables are, so you can understand it as a language, and also how to watch his hands to know what is being played, as well as using your ear. It's nice to be able to look at tabla players. Just like if you're looking at a drummer, you can see what they're doing. So if you're looking at a tabla player, it's nice to be able to actually see a little bit of what they're doing by reading what their hands are doing. And then we start to look at compositions, and there's 3 full compositions in 3 different speeds, which would take you through the different stages of a recital. Mukra, but the phrase that lands on the sum is also called a mukra phrase. So it tends to start from B12, especially in the Vilambit gats. So it's all the way through sa, ni, sa, re, re, ga. So I'm quite a patient teacher, really. I like to break down things and make sure that people really know what's going on. So if you're already quite advanced on the guitar, you'll pick all this stuff up really quickly and you'll flow through it, and it'll take you a long time to really implement it, but you'll probably be able to actually pick up what I'm playing quite quickly and then start to address your style around this. But even if you're sort of at an earlier stage on the guitar, I do break it down very clearly, so it's quite achievable to play this no matter what your level. Some of the later stuff that I do is very difficult, but you'll understand how to get there and all the components you need to actually build it up. And then I'll start to go through a composition, but you'll actually be hearing how it fits into the rhythm cycles. And then we have our 3 pars. So I'm counting through there, the timing is shown so you can see where I am in the rhythm cycle, so that really, really helps. And then tihais are very important. They're rhythmic ideas, they're rhythmic phrases that you play 3 times in order to land on the first beat of the cycle. So I really break that down and explain the kind of concept behind it and how you count out for them and how you put them in the right place so they land on the first beat. And there's an example of one of those for every composition. And then it gets into exercises, looking at the ornamentation techniques, but arranging them into actual exercises so you can really get an idea of how you would put them together within a time cycle. And then there's a nice example of all of that being put together, so you can see how all of these nuances start to become more part of a rhythmic cycle. Okay, so just wanted to show you a bit of that clip because there's a lot of different nuances in there that really create that more vocal sound, and all of the different techniques and just the way of thinking that helps to produce that kind of effect. It's all really explained in a lot of detail. And then there's other examples of live concerts which are much more varied in the playing. I can't promise that everything that I do in a live concert is going to be explained, because there's a lot of things that might happen there that you can't always break down everything that you do. But what you'll start to see is how these things start to come together, and then more organically how they start to play out in a real concert situation. So then we move through the other parts of the recital up to medium speeds, and in this part we start to break down the fingering techniques, so it gets much more specific in terms of how you orientate your fingers to play the right kind of lines, and how you would break those faster sequences down into different techniques. So there's 4 main different fingering techniques I found here. Each one seems to be very effective for playing Indian classical music type of lines, but also bringing out the nature of the guitar and how we can do a lot of guitaristic things that actually still work in the Indian form. So these videos are very detailed. Nisa Resa, which is 5, 7, 9, 7. Then I'd use the same fingering again, but you're stretching it out. So some people do it like this, okay. But for me, I just feel so much more tension in my little finger. If I push this finger down, I get a lot of tension in my little finger. Whereas if I do that, I feel like I'm stretching out my hand in the right kind of way, and then I can shift my power. So yeah, I like to go through things quite meticulously at times, because I find it makes a world of difference if you understand the right combinations of fingers to use and the right way that you can orientate yourself across the whole instrument and think about different fingering techniques. It really seems to help to actually put things together and make it achievable to play things in a more fluid way. So I like to actually break that down, because I think it makes a massive difference if people really understand that. So there's another line in this one, which this last video of this chapter, which only really happens if the fingers are actually organized in a certain way. So I'll just show you this little moment here. Is just so important, because if the fingering is correct, then the whole thing will just flow, and it will feel like the next note is always just right there where you need it. So if I cascaded through the whole scale using that motion, it would sound like this. That's actually more influence. So something like that, in my experience, that's just not going to happen unless things are actually lined up properly. And the finger combinations are very specific to get that kind of flow on a single string. So there's a lot of detail that goes into that, and then this helps you to get more into the faster playing that you need to do in the medium to faster speeds of rhythm cycle. So yeah, more compositions, more exercises where it gets much more specific in terms of repeating different scale fragments up and down, and doing it with different subdivisions, or jatis as they're called in Indian music. And then more examples of that kind of playing, and example of that kind of speed of rhythm cycle in a concert setting. Then moving into the faster sections, and here we start to get into much more of the high speed things. And a little video explaining about the nature of these patterns, because the patterns on their own They're not incredibly complicated, they're quite simple little patterns, but they're very specifically chosen because I've found that these are the ones which are the most effective for combining together. And when you do combine them in a certain way and you kind of unleash your imagination within these with these patterns as a springboard, then all kinds of things start to come out, but they have a sort of Indian classical sort of sitar kind of feel to them. So for example, things like this start to happen when you put all of this stuff together. So the typical kind of chakra T-high to finish off that line. So all the different things that happened in that clip, you know, to do that kind of thing, you need to know the timing cycle, you need to know how to move around the patterns which actually help to generate that, and then there's the right hand and how to orientate yourself. And then there's the tihai and how to watch out for the correct place to bring that in. So all of the different elements that go into that are addressed at some stage in the course. So when you add up all the different things in the course, it becomes more understandable how those kind of lines work. So that's kind of just an example of like the net result of those things, but then just being played in more of a sort of spontaneous, improvised way. But it's actually based on quite specific concepts that over the years I've kind of pieced together. So yeah, then we have another example of the drut, but I'm showing you every specific exercise being used at a different point. So this is the composition that we learned. There's a set tihai, and then it will move into an exercise or a technique and show you this is the technique. Here it is. So you would have learned earlier what that technique was, and now I'm showing it to you in a different speed and how it would work in the form of a whole recital, and then how a tihai might work at the end of that. And then we move on to the very last part, which is the really high-speed jala section, where you can get to incredible kind of speeds with the tabla, and then you have to work out a way of playing rhythmic lines that use the chakari strings again to work at that kind of speed. So you really need to know what these patterns are and how you're technically going to move your right hand around the strings to play these kind of patterns. So it's this kind of thing. So there's a concept here of playing very melodic things that can be sort of slow melodic things. So it's elements of the alap coming through. So the real purity of the raag can be heard. But at the same time, you've got these very driving rhythmic sequences with the right hand. And there's a few different sequences that we do with the right hand just to mix it up and give you a bit more freedom. And then there's a nice conclusion where I'm just talking about everything that we've learned and how to view it as a whole system and how it will help you to then go on to continue learning. And once you've got this whole foundation, then you'll be able to do all kinds of things with it. You'll be able to understand the main aspects of the music and then be able to do all kinds of things after that, because you'll have your grounding. And then finally, we have a full recital, and this is the full version of all the different examples that were seen on the earlier pages. They're all lined up into a 38.5-minute video that's more of a realistic length for a full rag recital. And it goes through all the different phases, and it shows you a more realistic kind of result that you'll get from all of the bits of the course actually being put together. So you can sit back and basically take in everything that we've learned and see, you know, what it's all meant to sound like when it's all put together. And every part of it has the text on the screen to guide you where you are in the recital and what technique I'm using at what time. So that's a nice way just to sit back and have something to listen to at the end. So there's the alap. It moves forward into the jaw jala with some of the rhythmic patterns. Okay, there's a bit of jaw jala. Okay, there's a bit of jaw jala. And then a bit of the lambit will be somewhere around here. There's the lambit. Then into a medium pace, which is about here, possibly. There's medium pace. And then into the drut. There's the fast pace. Out, and here's the jala with the right hand patterns, and then even through to the super fast jala at the end. And then the traditional way of ending. Chakodao Hai. Okay, so there's an overview of the whole course. I've showed you a lot of different clips there, but I was very happy to, because it's 4 hours of footage, so there's tons of stuff in there. There's a lot to get your teeth into, and yeah, just wanted to give people more of a peek so they can see what it's really like, because there is no other course that's like this, so you wouldn't even really be able to imagine what it's going to be like, because there's nothing else to go by. So I thought it might be important for people just to see what it really is, and all the different aspects that are in there, and how it's all shaped up into a sort of formula that, you know, in the end kind of equals Indian classical music on the guitar, but it's all broken down into all these different easily understandable parts. So thanks for watching if you got all the way through this. If you did get all the way through, then perhaps you're interested in buying the course. So, you know, come to my website, play lead guitar, and you can have a look at the course there. You can see the whole first chapter for free, but my course, Essential Techniques for Indian Guitar, is only available on my website, Play Lead Guitar. So have a little look at that, and if you want to just have another taste of something, there's a free Raag Yaman course, which doesn't have anything like the same detail. It doesn't have any exercises or compositions, but it just talks about the nature of Raag Yaman, and it's got a little bit of tab there as well. So you can check that one out for free if you just want to see some more things for now. But yeah, have a look at the course. You can see the first chapter to get a feel of what it's about. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.